So yeah, we start from here. So yeah, Shilpa, you can take over, and then anyone else who wants to read after that can put your name and follow through.
Okay, just a second. I need my glasses. Okay, so let me start. The illusion of ownership. To own something, what does it really mean? What does it mean? Sorry. What does it mean to make something mine? If you stand on a street in New York, point to a huge skyscraper and say, that building is mine, I own it. You're either very wealthy or you are delusional or a liar. In any case, you're telling a story in which the thought form I and the thought form building merge into one. That's how the mental concept of ownership works. If everybody agrees with your story, there will be signed pieces of paper to certify their agreement with it. You are wealthy. If nobody agrees with the story, they will send you to a psychiatrist. You're delusional or a compulsive liar. It is important to recognize here that the story and the thought forms that make up the story, whether people agree with it or not, have absolutely nothing to do with who you are. Even if people agree with it, ultimately, not ultimately, it is ultimately a fiction. Many people don't realize until they are on their deathbed and everything external falls away that no thing ever had anything to do with who they are. In the proximity of death, the whole concept of ownership stands revealed as ultimately meaningless. In the last moments of their life, they then also realize that while they were looking throughout their lives for a more complete sense of self, what they were really looking for, their being, had actually always already been there, but had been largely obscured by their identification with things, which ultimately means identification with their mind. Blessed are the poor in spirit, Jesus said, for theirs will be the kingdom of heaven. What does poor in spirit mean? No inner baggage, no identifications, not with things, not with any mental concepts that have a sense of self in them. What is the kingdom of heaven? The simple but profound joy of being that is there when you let go of identifications and so become poor in spirit. That is why renouncing all possessions has been an ancient spiritual practice in both East and West. Renunciation of possessions, however, will not automatically free you of the ego. It will attempt to ensure its survival by finding something else to identify with. For example, a mental image of yourself as someone who has transcended all interest in material possessions and is therefore superior, is more spiritual than others. There are people who have renounced all possessions but have a bigger ego than some millionaires. If you take away one kind of identification, the ego will find another. It ultimately doesn't mind what it identifies with as long as it has an identity. Anti consumerism or anti private ownership would be another thought form, another mental position that can replace identification with possessions. Through it, you could make yourself right and others wrong. As we shall see later, making yourself right and others wrong is one of the principal egoic mind patterns, one of the main forms of unconsciousness. In other words, the content of the ego may change, the mind structure that keeps it alive does not. One of the unconscious assumption is that by identifying with an object through the fiction of ownership, the apparent solidity and permanency of that material object will endow your sense of self with greater solidity and permanency. This applies particularly to buildings and even more so to land, since it is the only thing you think you can own that cannot be destroyed. The absurdity of owning something becomes even more apparent in the case of land. In the days of the white settlement, the natives of North America found ownership of land an incomprehensible concept, and so they lost it when the Europeans made them signs sign pieces of paper that were equally incomprehensible to them. They felt they belonged to the land, but the land did not belong to them. The ego tends to equate having with being. I have, therefore I am. And the more I have, the more I am. The ego lives through comparison. How you are seen by others turns into how you see yourself. If everyone lived in a mansion or everyone was wealthy, your mansion or your wealth would no longer serve to enhance your sense of self. You could then move to a simple cabin, give up our wealth, and regain an identity by seeing yourself and being seen as more spiritual than others. How you are seen by others becomes the mirror that tells you what you are like and who you are. The ego's sense of self worth is in most cases bound up with the worth you have. Um, in the eyes of others. You need others to give you a sense of self. And if you live in a culture that to a large extent equates self worth with how much and what you have, if you cannot look through this collective delusion, you will be condemned to chasing after things for the rest of your life in vain, hoping of finding your worth and completion of your sense of self there. How do you let go of attachment to things? Don't even try. It's impossible. I cannot see, Mansi. Okay, I'm reading from the book then. How do you let go of attachment to things? Don't even try. It's impossible. Attachment to things drops away by itself when you no longer seek to find yourself in them. In the meantime, just be aware of your attachment to things. Sometimes you may not know that you are attached to something, which is to say, identified, until you lose it, or there is the threat of loss. If you then become upset, anxious, and so on, it means you are attached. If you are aware that you are identified with a thing, the identification is no longer total. I am the awareness that is aware that there is attachment. I'll repeat this. I am the awareness that is aware that there is attachment. That's the beginning of the transformation of consciousness. Um, I don't know who the second person is in line to read. I think,
Jaditya has written her name.
okay, please do go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Shilpa. Wanting, the need for more. The ego identifies with having, but its satisfaction in having is a relatively shallow and short-lived one. Concealed within it remains a deep-seated sense of dissatisfaction, of incompleteness, of not enough. I don't have enough yet, by which the ego really means I am not enough yet. As we have seen, having the concept of ownership is a fiction created by the ego to give itself solidity and permanency and make itself stand out, make itself special. Since you cannot find yourself through having, however, there is another more powerful drive underneath it that pertains to the structure of the ego, the need for more, which we could also call wanting. No ego can last for long without the need for more. Therefore, wanting keeps the ego alive much more than having. The ego wants to want more than it wants to have. And so the shallow satisfaction of having is always replaced by more wanting. This is the psychological need for more, that is to say, more things to identify with. It is an addictive need, not an authentic one. In some cases, the psychological need for more or the feeling of not enough that is so characteristic of the ego becomes transferred to the physical level and so turns into insatiable hunger. The sufferers of bulimia will often make themselves vomit so they can continue eating. Their mind is hungry, not their body. This eating disorder would be would become healed if the sufferers, instead of being identified with their mind, could get in touch with their body and so feel the true needs of the body rather than the pseudo needs of the egoic mind. Some egos know what they want and pursue their aim with grim and ruthless determination. Genghis Khan, Stalin, Hitler, to give just a few larger than life examples. The energy behind their wanting, however, creates an opposing energy of equal intensity that in the end leads to their downfall. In the meantime, they make themselves and many others unhappy, or in the larger than life examples, create hell on earth. Most egos have conflicting wants. They want different things at different times, or may not even know what they want, except that they don't want what is the present moment. Unease, restlessness, boredom, anxiety, dissatisfaction are the result of unfulfilled wanting. Wanting is structural, so no amount of content can provide lasting fulfillment as long as that mental structure remains in place. Intense wanting that has no specific object can often be found in the still developing ego of teenagers, some of whom are in a permanent state of negativity and dissatisfaction. The physical needs for food, water, shelter, clothing, and basic comforts could be easily met for all the humans on the planet were it not for the imbalance of resources created by the insane and rapacious need for more, the greed of the ego. It finds collective expression in the economic structures of this world, such as the huge corporations, which are egoic entities that compete with each other for more. Their only blind aim is profit. They pursue that aim with absolute ruthlessness. Nature, animals, people, even their own employees are no more than digits on a balance sheet, lifeless objects to be used, then discarded. The thought forms of me and mine, of more than, of I want, I need, I must have, and of not enough pertain not to content but to the structure of the ego. The content is interchangeable. As long as you don't recognize those thought forms within yourself, as long as they remain unconscious, you will believe in what they say. You will be condemned to acting out those unconscious thoughts, condemned to seeking and not finding, because when those thought forms operate, no possession, place, person, or condition will ever satisfy you. No content will satisfy you as long as the egoic structure remains in place. No matter what you have or get, you won't be happy. You will always be looking for something else that promises greater fulfillment, that promises to make your incomplete sense of self complete and fill that sense of lack you feel within. Identification with the body. Apart from objects, another basic form of identification is with my body. Firstly, the body is male or female, and so the sense of being a man or woman takes up a significant part of most people's sense of self. Gender becomes identity. Identification with gender is encouraged at an early age, and it forces you into a role, into conditioned patterns of behavior that affect all aspects of your life, not just sexuality. It is a role many people become completely trapped in, even more so in some of the traditional societies than in Western culture, where identification with gender is beginning to lessen somewhat. In some traditional cultures, the worst fate a woman can have is to be unwed or barren, and for a man to lack sexual potency and not be able to produce children. Life's fulfillment is perceived to be fulfillment of one's gender identity. In the West, it is the physical appearance of the body that contributes greatly to the sense of who you think you are. Its strength or weakness is perceived, its perceived beauty or ugliness relative to others. For many people, their sense of self-worth is intimately bound up with their physical strength, good looks, fitness, and external appearance. Many feel a diminished sense of self-worth because they perceive their body as ugly or imperfect. In some cases, the mental image or concept of my body is a complete distortion of reality. A young woman may think of herself as overweight and therefore starve herself when in fact she is quite thin. She cannot see her body anymore. All she sees is the mental concept of her body, which says, I am fat or I will become fat. At the root of this condition lies identification with the mind, as people have become more and more mind identified, which is the intensification of egoic dysfunction. There has also been a dramatic increase in the incidence of anorexia in recent decades. If the sufferer could look at her body without the interfering judgments of her mind, or even recognize those judgments for what they are instead of believing in them, or better still, if she could feel her body from within, this would initiate her healing. Okay, I think Sunita wants to read next, right? Go ahead, Sunita.
Those who are identified with their good looks, physical strength, or abilities experience suffering when those attributes begin to fade and disappear, as of course they will. Their very identity that is based on them is then threatened to collapse. In either case, ugly or beautiful, people derive a significant part of their identity, be it negative or positive, from their body. To be more precise, they derive their identity from the I thought that they enormously attach to the mental image or concept of their body, which, after all, is no more than a physical form that shares the destiny of all forms, impermanence, and ultimately decay. Equating the physical sense perceived body that is destined to grow old, wither, and die with I always leads to suffering sooner or later. To refrain from identifying with the body doesn't mean that you neglect, despise, or no longer care for it. If it is strong, beautiful, or vigorous, you can enjoy and appreciate those attributes while they last. You can also improve the body's condition through right nutrition and exercise. If you don't equate the body with who you are, when beauty fades, vigor diminishes, or the body becomes incapacitated, this will not affect your sense of worth or identity in any way. In fact, as the body begins to weaken, the formless dimension, the light of consciousness, can shine more easily through the fading breath. It is not just people with good or near perfect bodies who are likely to equate it with who they are. You can just as easily identify with a problematic body and make the body's imperfection, illness, or disability into your identity. You may even think and speak of yourself as a sufferer of this or that chronic illness or disability. You receive a great deal of attention from doctors and others who positively confirm to your conceptual identity of the self. You then unconsciously cling to the illness because it has become the most important part of who you perceive yourself. It has become another thought form with which the ego can identify. Once the ego has found an identity, it does not want to let go. Amazingly, but not infrequently, the ego, in search of a stronger identity, and can and does create images in order to strengthen itself through them, feeling the inner world. Although body identification is one of the most basic forms of ego, the good news is that it is also the one that you can most easily go beyond. This is done not by trying to convince yourself that you are not your body, but by shifting your attention from the external form of your body and from thoughts about your body, beautiful, ugly, strong, weak, in fact, everything, to the feeling of aliveness inside. No matter what your body's appearance is on the outer level, beyond the outer form, it is intensely alive energy field. If you're not familiar with inner body awareness, close your eyes for a moment and find out if there is light inside your eyes. Don't ask your mind. It will say, I can't feel anything. Probably it will also say, give me something more interesting to think about. So instead of asking your mind, go to the handstand. By this I mean become aware but the subtle feeling of aliveness itself. Is it there? You just have to go there with your attention to notice it. You may get a slight pulling sensation, then a feeling of energy or rise. If you hold your attention in your hands for a while, the sense of aliveness will intensify. Some people won't even have to close their eyes. They will be able to feel their inner hands at the same time as they notice. Then you go to your feet. Keep your attention there for a minute or so and begin to feel your hands and feet at the same time. Then incorporate other parts of it, legs, arms, abdomen, chest, and so on, into that feeling till you are aware that your body has a global sense of life. What I call the inner body isn't really the body anymore, but lies in it, the bridge, the form, and formlessness. Make it a habit to feel the inner body as often as you can. After a while, you won't need to close your eyes anymore. For example, see if you can feel the inner body whenever you listen to something, which almost seems like a paradox. When you are in touch with your body, you're not identified with your body anymore, nor are you identified with your mind. This is to say, you are no longer identified with form, but moving away from form identification towards formlessness, which we may also call being. It is your essence identity. Body awareness not only anchors you in the present moment, it is a doorway out of the missing box. It also strengthens the immune system and the body's ability to heal itself. Forgetfulness of being. Ego is always identification with form, seeking yourself and thereby losing yourself in some form. Forms are not just material objects and physical bodies. More fundamental than the external forms, things and bodies are the thought forms that continuously arise in the field of consciousness. They are energy formations, finer and less dense than physical matter, but they are formed nonetheless. What you may be aware of as a voice in your head that in your head that never stops speaking is the stream of incessant and compulsive thought. When if thought absorbs your attention completely, when you are so identified with the voice in your head and the notions that accompany it, you lose yourself in every thought and every emotion. Then you're totally identified with form and therefore in grip of the ego. Ego is a conglomeration of recurring thought threads and conditioned mental emotional patterns that are invested with the sense of I, a sense of self. Ego arises when your sense of beingness, of I am, which is formless consciousness, gets mixed up with the thought. This is the meaning of identification. This is forgetfulness of being, the primary end, the illusion of absolute separateness that turns reality into a lie. Is anyone else want to take it?
Yeah, anyone who would like to read next from here? I can see no names now. Anyone? Or I can read if no one is there.
Please go ahead, Mansi.
Okay. From Descartes' error to Sartre's insight. The 17th century philosopher Descartes, I guess. Descartes is regarded as the founder of modern philosophy, gave expression to this primary error with this famous dictum, which he saw as primary truth. I think, therefore I am. This was the answer he found to the question, is there anything I can know with absolute certainty? He realized that the fact that he was always thinking was beyond doubt. And so he equated thinking with being, that is to say, identity. I am with thinking. Instead of the ultimate truth, he had found the root of the ego, but he didn't know that. It took almost 300 years before another famous philosopher saw something in that statement that Descartes, as well as everybody else, has overlooked. His name was Jean Paul Sartre. He looked at Descartes' statement, I think, therefore I am, very deeply and suddenly realized in his own words the consciousness that says I am is not the consciousness that thinks. What did he mean by that? When you are aware that you are thinking, that awareness is not part of thinking. I'll read this again. The consciousness that says I am is not the consciousness that thinks. What did he mean by that? When you are aware that you are thinking, that awareness is not part of thinking. It is different dimension of consciousness. And it is that awareness that says I am. If there were nothing but thought in you, you wouldn't even know you are thinking. You would be like a dreamer who doesn't know he is dreaming. You would be as identified with every thought as the dreamer is with every image in the dream. Many people still live like that, like sleepwalkers, trapped in old dysfunctional mindsets that continuously recreate the same nightmarish reality. When you know you're dreaming, you're awake within the dream. Another dimension of consciousness has come in. The implication of Sartre's insight is profound, but he himself was still too identified with thinking to realize the full significance of what he had discovered, an emerging new dimension of consciousness. Anjali, you want to read now? You can take over from me.
Thank you, Mansi. Yeah. The peace that passes all understanding. There are many accounts of people who experience that emerging new dimension of consciousness as a result of tragic loss at some point in their lives. Some lost all of their possessions, others their children or spouse, their social position, reputation, or physical abilities. In some cases, through disaster or war, they lost all of these simultaneously and found themselves with nothing. We may call this a limit situation. Whatever they had identified with, whatever gave them their sense of self, had been taken away. Then suddenly and inexplicably, the anguish and intense fear they initially felt gave way to a sacred sense of presence, a deep peace and serenity and complete freedom from fear. This phenomenon must have been familiar to St. Paul, who used the expression, the peace of God which passeth all understanding. It is indeed a peace that doesn't seem to make sense, and the people who experienced it ask themselves, in the face of this, how can it be that I feel such peace? The answer is simple. Once you realize what the ego is and how it works, when forms that you had identified with that gave you your sense of self collapse or are taken away, it can lead to a collapse of the ego, since ego is identification with form. When there is nothing to identify with anymore, who are you? When forms around you die or death approaches, your sense of beingness, of I am, is freed from its entanglement with form. Spirit is released from its imprisonment in matter. You realize your essential identity as formless, or as an all pervasive presence of being prior to all forms, all identifications. You realize your true identity as consciousness itself rather than what consciousness had identified with. Can I repeat this, please? Spirit is ये है when forms around you die or death approaches, your sense of beingness of I am is freed from its entanglement with form. Spirit is released from its imprisonment in matter. You realize your essential identity as formless, as an all pervasive presence of being prior to all forms, all identifications. You realize your true identity as consciousness itself, rather than what consciousness had identified with. That's the peace of God. The ultimate truth of who you are is not in I am this or I am that, but I am. Not everybody who experiences great loss also experiences this awakening, this disidentification from form. Some immediately create a strong mental image or thought form in which they see themselves as a victim, whether it be of circumstances, other people, an unjust fate, or God. This thought form and the emotions it creates such an anger, resentment, self pity, and so on, they strongly identify with, and it immediately takes the place of all the other identifications that have collapsed through the loss. In other words, the ego quickly finds a new form. The fact that this new form is a deeply unhappy one doesn't concern the ego too much, as long as it has an identity, good or bad. In fact, this new ego will be more contracted, more rigid, and impenetrable than the old one. Whenever tragic loss occurs, you either resist or you yield. Some people become bitter or deeply resentful, others become compassionate, wise, and loving. Yielding means inner acceptance of what is. You are open to life. Resistance is an inner contraction, a hardening of the shell of the ego. You are closed. Whatever action you take in a state of inner resistance, which we could also call negativity, will create more outer resistance, and the universe will not be on your side. Life will not be helpful. If the shutters are closed, the sunlight cannot come in. When you yield internally, when you surrender, a new dimension of consciousness opens up. If action is possible or necessary, your action will be in alignment with the whole and supported by creative intelligence and the unconditioned consciousness, which, in a state of inner openness, you become one with. Circumstances and people then become helpful, cooperative. Coincidences happen. If no action is possible, you rest in the peace and inner stillness that come with surrender. You rest in God.
Okay, I think let's stop here
Yeah,
for today. Yeah, because the third chapter is again 12 pages. It will take longer and will end up finishing late otherwise. So we'll take from here on Monday onwards. So yeah, thank you everyone for reading. So we can open up for discussion, and I think the reading was also quite deep. So I would highly request everyone that do talk from the context of the book and like whatever we read today, so that we can go deeper and reflect upon it. And anyone, if anything is not clear, that might help them have some more clarity around the concepts that we read today. So the chapter was all about ego and different forms of ego. And yeah, so anything anyone could identify with, or anyone anything that you just could relate and think of as we are reading through, anything strike to you, anything new information, what are your takeaways from today's chapter? Feel free to unmute and speak. Yes. Who would like to go first?
For
Deepa,
me,
you wanted to read? Okay, we finished. We stopped reading. So, if you want
No,
to
no, it's
share,
okay. It's okay. It's okay. I just came in actually, and I
okay,
just wrote my name. I'll read on Monday. No problem.
no
No
problem.
sharing.
Yeah.
I just listen. I'm
Anyone
just
who have
listening. Yes,
missed,
yes.
all of you who might have missed some parts, you can just catch up over the weekend. We just covered first and second chapter, and I feel we should really go through it once because it's a quite of it's quite deep actually. So it's not that easy to just read once and understand, but because they are like the chapters that we're reading now are actually shattering our beliefs, right? What we have grown up with, what we have identified ourselves with for so long. So yes, please go through and please dive in deeper. Yeah, anyone who would like to, anything you want to share from yesterday's reading or whatever you heard today, Deepa, or anyone else?
so for me, when we was talking about uh, form and formlessness, I could relate to the quantum physics of it. That they say that you're just a ball of particles, that are closely knit together. So that was what came to my mind, and that is what I could relate with Joe Dispenza and hmm, there's one more hmm, doctors. माइंडफुलनेस में जो होता है ना मैं माइंड वैली में डिस्पेंसा जो डिस्पेंसा also proposes this fact that everything can be healed through a inner energy and the frequencies that we have, and we're just a ball of particles stuck together. So that was what came to my mind, and I associated with the fact that you can feel your inner strength and your uh, inner being. That was it. Yeah, that was my correlation with it. The ego part of it, uh, I still need a lot of introspection to understand as to what part I'm playing with, or how I am adjusting myself with my ego and my understanding of things. So that's still in process.
Yes, yes, very well identified. Yes, yes, actually, what Joe Dispenza and in fact many people who talk about it, it is the quantum physics basically where we are the basis of it is like we are all energy. Everything beneath everything, we are just atoms and molecules, and we are all energy, and we are operating in this energy field. The universe is all energy, and that is how they tell us, right? That you can just as you start vibrating at a certain frequency, that's how we attract like attracts like. So that's what quantum physics talks about. So that's what he's also talking in a different with different use of different words. Yes, I personally liked how he had differentiated the I am, and from what I understand, it is basically I am is so whenever we attach anything, I am like or this is mine. He talked about it in the yesterday's part from the chapter, right? Me, mine, myself. Anything that comes under this, that comes from a place of ego because we identify that thing with ours like ourself. So that is why we say, right, like in affirmations also we say I am attracting, I am doing this, or I am, because we want to become that. So anything, so we want to identify with something that is like a functional belief. So we are just seeding that belief in ourselves on a conscious level. So that's what I just remembered of. And I loved how he has distinguished this ego in different places. Like not he talked elaboratedly about how we are how we have ego with things, then with even our body and so many other things, right? Our identities, like whatever we do or whatever we have and want. Especially he also highlighted that it's the most like crucial ego that we find hardly, like it's not enough, like we don't, like we're not able to actually point that out, is where it is related to wants, because we always want this, want that. Actually this is on a very very higher spiritual level, I feel. And so we, it's very difficult, or at least we would say it's not that easy to just read something once and let go of all the ego. But at least now that we are put into this awareness through this reading, maybe we will start looking a little differently at things. Maybe we will start at least questioning ourselves, ki, am I, at least some point of the time it should happen that we should question, am I identifying a lot with this thing, at least when something is causing a suffering, when we know that we are drifting away from the beingness a little bit, at least to certain awareness. Because as we said in the initial like before starting the book, each one of us is going to understand the concept from the book very very differently, based on our own practices or level of awareness that we are right now. And so it's even the discussions that we are going to have are going to be, I feel, uh, on a very superficial level than what the author really wants us to help and understand, unless we are that deep into understanding all these concepts. But at least we can try by sharing our understanding, so that it might help others in the group. So feel free to talk and share whatever you would like to, or whatever you have understood so far, or anything that relates to you from the context of the ego, and um, other things that you might have learned elsewhere. So yeah, yeah, Deepa, you want
Yeah,
to say something?
good morning to all. Yeah, this is Pranavi here.
Yeah, yeah, Pranav. Yeah.
Uh, yeah, the last lines wherein he says that, in order to work for your intentions and the manifestation, whatever, you need to first heal the inner core of it. If you don't heal, there is something called as inner resistance. And with that inner resistance, whatever you're trying to manifest, the outer resistance would also come into the face. So, in order to clear that particular inner resistance, you need to first heal yourself. After healing itself, after cleansing itself, the manifestation process or the intention process will work at a higher level. This was the last point read. So I got really connected with it because there the main cleaning part happens. After cleansing, only everything will come into the contact with the universal frequency. Thank you all.
Yeah. Wow, very well pointed. Yeah, I might have not like paid so much attention to it, but from what you have highlighted, what I understand, I'll just share this. So I have experienced it very strongly, and touch wood that I am into awareness of this happenings. That basically I've seen that if something is going on, like for example, if I'm planning something with someone, or something is happening, some project is getting worked upon or something, and if I have a resistance for it, if I feel ki yaar nahi yaar, I don't want to do with this, or I don't want to do somewhere, if there is an inner resistance, as what you just pointed out, so I have seen this very strongly happen, that things just fall off, like कुछ ना कुछ हो जाता है, and just and something happens, and that things don't work out for us. So we do experiences from a day to day life, right? Like where things are not falling in place, we want something, but then we want it half heartedly. There is some kind of resistance because of maybe some beliefs, some limited understanding, some fear, something that is holding us back. A part of us wants it, but also a part of us do not want it to happen. Then it does happen that things don't work out for us. So whenever you think na ki are I'm trying so hard and this is not working out for me, why is it, then you have to really check on yourself, like what is stopping me, what is exactly that one thing that is holding me back. So I understand this. और मैंने बहुत I have experienced it very very strongly, like just yesterday I remember. So it's like alignment also, sometimes it's like telepathy or whatever. So sometimes when I don't want to go to a certain place, something will happen, and then that other person will just call and say ki are this is cancelled for today or something. Like yesterday, just yesterday, I was wanting to have a call with someone, but I was personally not ready for a Zoom call. And somehow the person just called me and told me that oh, there is some network issues and something happening in our place, so can we just have a simple call instead of a Zoom call, like an audio call? And it just worked in my favor. So things like that happens all the time. So I feel when we experience this, maybe now we will be in a little bit of awareness. So yeah, thank you for pointing that out. Yes, we have hands raised, Shilpa, Richa, and Deepa. So I think Richa raised a hand first. So Richa, would you like to go first, and then after that, Deepa, Shilpa, you
No,
can just go one by one.
I think Deepa was first. I'll let her go. Go ahead, Deepa.
Okay, Deepa, you go, then Richa, you take over, and then Shilpa, you can take over. Yeah, go on, one by one.
Yeah. Yeah, 1 second. 1 second. Yeah. So actually, I want to read. May I? A little bit, just a little bit. Hmm? In
Yeah, yeah.
most ancient cultures, people believed that everything, even so called inanimate objects, had an indwelling spirit. And in this respect, they were closer to the truth than we are today. So I feel this is taken from most ancient cultures, maybe the Asian cultures, maybe precisely the Indian culture, wherein we believe that every body, every form, the inanimate objects also contain some spirit, like even the stones, the furniture, we worship everything, we talk to everything, right? So that is one thing he has pointed out here. And then, when you live in a world deadened by mental abstractions, you don't sense the aliveness of the universe anymore. Most people don't inhabit a living reality, but in a conceptualized one. So, when you see life in every form, everything, then I guess he's trying to say that a world deadened by mental abstraction. So you don't see life form even in something which has life. Forget about something having life in inanimate things. So don't allow the clutter, the talk, the chatter going in our mind to deaden even the alive things. Is that what he's trying to say? I'm just trying to analyze that. So even when we are living and we are alive, we see more of dead end things because of the clutter and the chatter going in our mind. So we should be beware of that. And the next para, I believe, continues this concept. But we cannot honor, but we cannot really honor things if we use them as a means to self enhancement. That is to say, if we try to find ourselves through them. Like if I buy a new vehicle or a new stuff and I see that that is going to enhance me, that object is going to enhance me, without that I'm nothing. So I can't see even anything, not just people, but even things to be a means to my self enhancement too. So I have to see myself as being good with as I am, not through something else. This is exactly what the ego does. Ego identification with things creates attachment to things, obsession with things, which in turn creates our consumer society and economic structures where the only measure of progress is always more. Yes. So I think even Shilpa talked about this yesterday. The unchecked striving for more, for endless growth is dysfunction and a disease. It is the same dysfunction the cancerous cells manifest, whose only goal is to multiply itself, unaware that it is bringing about its own destruction by destroying the organism of which it is a part. Yes. So, the more desires we have for material things, that much it can destroy us. Just like the cancer is something like a parasite, depends on our body, but by multiplying itself so much by using our own body's resources, It can destroy us and it will definitely kill itself. So that much of materialism shouldn't be there. Some economists are so attached to the notion of growth that they can't let go of that word. So they refer to the recession as a time of negative growth. Yes. So recession is referring to as negative growth, wherein people don't buy, the economy is at a downtime. Yeah, thank you. I'm just came across this and I identified people going through this. So I just read it out. Thank you.
Yeah, where are you reading this from? Which part?
I think this was from yesterday.
Okay, okay, okay. Yeah, yeah.
Certain
Okay.
parts. I mean, still the same chapter. It was chapter
Yeah, yeah.
2.
I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Thank you for highlighting that, Deepa, for all of us. Yes, very, very well pointed out. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
Richa.
26, page number 26. Hmm.
Okay, okay,
So
cool,
he's
cool. Yeah.
primarily telling be as unmaterialistic, but at the same time see life form in spirit in every material. But don't attach yourself to it. Otherwise, it can become cancerous, is how I have interpreted it.
Yeah, yeah. Great. Awesome. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Richa, you want to say something?
Yep. Just a couple of things that caught my attention from today's reading. The author says attachment to things drops away by itself when you no longer seek to find yourself in them. Uh, for years, I have tried doing this. It's very hard. But I like that the author does follow this by saying, in the meantime, just be aware of your attachment to things. So he's not, again, prescribing that, okay, yeah, this will happen and you just stay at it. But he's also giving you, meanwhile, strategies, right? Uh, so what I do personally is again, there is no structure to this because I don't try to put too many things on myself. But whenever I feel like it's time for me to reevaluate, all of my sanskars, as we call it in the Hindu philosophy, uh, I do that kind of reevaluation and list down, things that I still feel that I'm like very attached to. And then also some of the other sanskars. So this line basically reminded me of that re-evaluation that we all can do, just to be aware, like, how much are we still emotionally involved? It could also be with people. We are like sometimes like too emotionally involved with certain relations in our life. So I think it works very well with all of that. So I like his approach. The other part that really caught my attention, because I had not thought of it this way, where he explains the whole deal about wanting, right, and the need for more. He said something: wanting is structural, so no amount of content can provide lasting fulfillment as long as that mental structure remains in place. This was like actually very mind blowing for me, because I always used to think that wanting has no limit and it is like totally formless and there is no structure. But he is actually refuting that whole idea that is again maybe built out of ego in our minds. So I really liked this sentence, that wanting is structural and therefore no amount of content can provide lasting fulfillment as long as that structure remains in place. So, yeah, these were the two things. Thank you.
Yeah, very, very well pointed. It's beautiful, na? How we are all identifying with different points from the same chapter, and that's how we are just getting it revised. So yeah, thank you, Richa, for sharing that. I do agree with you. In fact, even I remembered of something to share. So I'll do if I get time. Yeah. Yeah, Shilpa, you go on.
Yeah, thank you, Richa. Thank you, Deepa, too. And thank you, Mansi, and everyone else, too. Um, so, as I had earlier mentioned, I've read this book 4 times, and I think I'm just, at the tip of the iceberg. I'm just right on the top. I may have just taken. Um, I don't want to measure anything right now because I realize that that's when the ego is talking. Either it's putting me up high or putting me up down too low. So with I found I would like to share with you certain strategies that I used or tools. Let me put it as tools that really helped me uh, to go through or to uh, practice this. I'm sorry, I have to open the door. You'll have to give me at least 20 seconds, please. I'm sorry. There's just give me. Could someone
Okay,
take over?
yeah, yeah, I'll just share mine till the time you come back. So I'll just identified. He talked about the right and wrong, right? He talked about our attachment to the right and wrong. That is also ego. So I can really relate with this. So there was this one quote which was which changed. I had mentioned this before also. Some of you might have heard it before, saying me this before, but I'll just mention it again for others who might not have heard it. So there was this one quote where one monk was asked, "Ki, what is the one thing that you think people are most attached to?" So, and then the answer that he gave was, people are most attached to their opinions. So he talked about the right and wrong, and if you see, many people will argue to any extent with you to prove that how they are right and you are wrong, and vice versa, right? So I feel this when I heard this has changed my perspective of looking at things right and wrong, and that made me more open minded, where I try to embrace other person's opinion equally. And there was this one beautiful it was not even any spiritual or anything like that, but it was a simple orchestra or something that we had gone to. And while hosting, the one who was actually the anchor of the orchestra, he just mentioned, like mentioning something, he just said, that was in Marathi. It was a Marathi, this thing, my mother tongue. So in that they say, काही लोकांना, some people, I'll just translate it. काही लोकांना आपल्या विनम्रपणाचाच माज असतो. For example, the literal translation is, some people are so proud of being so uh, down to earth. So if you just get the contrast in this, like it's basically, some people try to be so humble, so calm, and they're so artificially calm and like fires at the surface, that they are so proud of themselves. You see, like if somebody is like getting triggered, they will be still remaining calm and this thing, and it is very irritating. If you see in reality, it feels very irritating, like how can a person be, if a person is really calm from within, and it's not just pretending to be calm, or very sophisticated for that matter, then we actually feel that energy and you get calmer. We get calm within, like, because that person's energy is helping you get calmer, because that is how they are emitting that energy towards you. But some people just want to be calm at the surface just because they hear all these things. And so I just love that these two sentences. So this one was like, some people are just too proud uh, of their own serenity, basically. So I don't know, like if anyone can relate with it, but I just remembered them and I just thought of sharing. So they have changed my life, and they keep me a little humble when I try to reflect upon them. So yeah, so sometimes we go in that place also, right? Like we think, oh, I am the one. I am so I'm like we underestimate people, thinking like, how can this person behave like this? I am so calm. I am so composed and things like that. So that is also not a thing, like where you should not go into that. I think that also comes from a place of ego, where you feel you are superior because you're better. So just wanted to highlight that.
Yeah, I resonate with this. I think the term for this that I had heard from someone was spiritual ego. Like once you get very spiritual, that's the kind of
Yes,
ego
yes.
that you develop, and that's very dangerous actually, because you have that sense of, and I think it brings more sense of separateness from others, and you
Yes.
feel as if you are at a higher level, and that's like so far away from the truth. Like if you're still seeing others beneath you, as you rightly said, that it's a very dangerous situation to be in.
Yes, yes. And basically, what I understand so far that when you get spiritual or when you get on a higher versions of yourself, you should become more compassionate, more sensitive, more understanding. And if that is accepting and all of that, and if that is not happening, then maybe you're going in a wrong direction, and you're just thinking you're rising, but you're not. Like that's what I understand. Like
Mansi,
yeah.
yeah, what you are saying now, it is in the last two paragraph, I believe. When he's talking about that ego is attaching to a mental image, even any form, that is also a ego. And when it is negative, and we become very hard, we become resistant to the universe. So this is what I think Richa is also talking about, and you are also talking about, that ego is something that attaching to the forms, or even when we are we face any
Yes, yes.
tragic loss also, na same thing happens. Either we become very resistant or very bitter, and those things give resistance, and we close ourselves. This last paragraph, resistance is an inner contraction, a hardening of the shell of the ego. You are closed. Whatever action you take in a state of inner resistance, which we could also call negativity, will create more outer resistance, and the universe will not be on your side. Life will not be helpful. So, in fact, this
Yeah.
author is, yeah, attaching ego with the feelings as well. That these are also when we need some identification, any loss, or any sense of bitterness. It also gives a form of ego, that we are either playing a victim card, or we are thinking going into the self pity zone. We close ourselves. That is also a form of ego. This was something new for me.
Yes,
So
yes, yes. Very, very well pointed. And in fact, yes, because that is also what we're identifying ourselves with, right? Like I am a person like this, I am like this. So and one thing what I understand about I am is basically when we're talking about anything, like anything that we don't really want to have as a quality in us, like or we don't want to associate too much. The hack is also like just not saying I am with that thing, because then subconsciously we are identifying with that thing. So for example, if we are feeling angry, instead of saying I am angry, we can say we can just say I feel angry right now, or something like that. That just dissolves it to a certain extent. Okay, and Shilpa is back, so let us just hear from her. So yeah, Shilpa, please share.
Yeah,
Sorry it took longer.
thank you. Thank you for waiting. Um, so I have to go back in my thoughts. Okay, so I wanted to share my the tools that I have used. So, too much of contemplation, too much of this, it's also feeding the ego. According to the teachers that uh, I had personal contact with, whether it was my Zen teachers or Buddhist, Tibetan Buddhism teachers, the lamas. So go more in stillness. This logic thinking of rationalizing it is again the work of the ego. So we have to move out of this. So once you move out and go into stillness, the ego stops talking. The more you observe it, the more you watch it. Now, again, To put it in other words, every time you talk about it, you are feeding it. You are putting ghee in the fire. So you are lighting it more and more. And so I could not understand this because I wanted to understand it mentally. And I was told I have to experience it. This is what Eastern tradition talks about, experiential. And the book is written by this German. He talks about it from the Western aspect of it. So it is a lot of mental clutter that we all have. And it also initiates this mental way of looking at it. So my experience, again, the experience that this body, this mind has had and is still experiencing, is to observe, not not to not to practice and observe, and it has got nothing to do with others, absolutely nothing to do with others. It is to do with yourself. I'll give you an example. I also believe the same thing in the sense that when I left the country and I moved to another country where I knew no one, absolutely no one, only one person. So I started seeing myself from that person's eyes. So if that person saw me as a good person or a bad person, I would see myself like that. And it was very scary. Okay, but I managed to get out of it because I saw my ego playing games there, and there were other things also. So observe, practice. When you witness the thoughts, your emotions, your reactions, without any judgment, we are not going to become enlightened. We are just trying to find more peace. And this is also not a goal. This is curiosity. That is also not what we talk about in Zen Buddhism. But I'm trying to say right at the beginning, I took it as curiosity. Curiosity to search within myself, within this self, not myself, within this self, what is the self? And Nisargadatta Maharaj talks about it very well in his book, Who Am I? So simply noticing when the ego is active weakens the grip. And so what is means by observing the ego? How will you start observing the ego? Through practices of mindfulness. Easiest. You can't sit for meditation immediately. People want to sit for meditation just thinking you can sit cross-legged and watch your breath or meditate. But before that, if you do not still your body has to get stilled. Before you still your body, and before that, if you start with mindfulness, so be mindful what you're doing. Give yourself 15 minutes every day and say, in these 15 minutes, I will be mindful. What does mindful mean? Mindful means that you know what you are doing. I am moving my left hand. My right toe is touching the floor. I am making tea. I am taking this tea bag out. So this is what is slowing down. This is what mindfulness is. So each and every action that you're doing, you are totally aware, immersed in it. That weakens the ego. And through this presence, through this body awareness, you can connect to your true self. So many of us, when we do yoga or tai chi or qigong or these practices, we connect to ourselves and we feel, we experience a holistic version of ourselves. That is because you were present at the moment. And as Mansi mentioned, instead of saying, I said, I feel angry, again, that I is there. So you have to drop this I. Um, so if you do meditation with Soham, and Soham means that am I, if you translate it like that. That am I. So that is first. But you can also say Hum Sa. That means I am that. And then when you start getting, this is the fourth thing that I want to share with you. So the first thing, let me just name them. I said first thing, I said to observe the ego. Second thing, I talked about mindfulness. Third thing, which is connected to mindfulness, is being present in the presence. Because the ego can only survive in the past or in the future. In the harbor of the present, there is no life for the ego. So the fourth is accepting the now, the moment. What does that mean? Whatever is happening is the right thing that is happening for you. So, not what I want, what you want, whatever is going on, it's just the right thing that is happening. When you surrender to this moment, ego immediately dissolves. What do I mean by it dissolves? I mean the resistance of the ego to survive dissolves. Because the ego thrives on what should be. So let go of this should, the model verbs. Again, what Mansi talked about in this Marathi thing that she said, there was this word, and I forgot the Marathi word for it, but it was humility and humbleness. So once we start practicing humility and gratitude, ego also lessens and weakens. And sitting in silence, I'm not talking about meditation, sitting in silence, not reacting, not responding, just sitting in silence, just doing absolutely nothing. That is also a form of being in the present. I My personal experience is I dip like in the Ganges, you dip. So I dip in this ocean of life, and then I come out of it. So I keep on dipping. Um, so when I'm doing vipassana, then I'm totally out of it, and I know I again when I come out, I will immerse into it. I'm not enlightened. I'm nowhere anywhere close to it. Nor I think it is my goal. My goal is just it's not a goal. It's my right. Again, I say my right. See, you see my words that I'm using. I'm There lack of words. So if you do more and more of these practices and you really surrender, you achieve a inner sense of peace, which no one can take away from you. And even if you dip and come out, it will always this inner peace will always be there, and you will want to come back. That is coming back home. I think I've said too much, so I'll end here. I if I'm just offering this, I could give a guided practice about this. I checked my notes, uh, and I have a guided practice that I have done. So if you are interested, or if someone is interested, just DM me and we could do a short guided practice. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shilpa. We do remember the meditations you took us through during the power of the heart. And yes, yeah, we are most welcome. Like, you just declare a date or a day, and when you would like us to take through that practices, whatever you would like to, and please feel free. Thank you for sharing that. Like, yes. Yeah, I think Sunita has raised a hand. You want to say something, Sunita? And yes, also, we are nearing 8:30, so somehow we are just going extending time with this book. Maybe because the discussion is deeper, the topics are deeper. But just one more thing, like the point of having lesser time for discussion and more for reading was that we go back taking more of the reading, because discussions may be derailing from what we read, and we need to reflect more upon what we read. So so be mindful, let's be mindful of that. And yes, yeah, Sunita, please do share
Yeah.
whatever you
No,
would
no,
like
I
to
don't
ask
want to share anything. I just wanted to um say that whatever Shilpi said, I actually listened to the podcast that you had mentioned, and he has talked. Eckhart has talked about all this, the steps that she mentioned now. So he did say that it is feeling, it is your own. You cannot ask anyone to experience this or feel this or define this. You have to experience for yourself. And
yes.
either you're there or you're not there. So, it gave me a lot of clarity. Remember, yesterday I had a lot of
Yeah,
questions, so I went.
yeah. So
So
yeah,
you have,
I'm highly recommending.
uh,
Please listen to the podcast, because see, when we read, we derive our own meaning out of it because of the beliefs or whatever we think it is right and wrong. And even if we discuss, like in a group, we are all at somewhere at one page, right? So we will be discussing at that same this thing. We are not listening to someone who is high, like a monk or someone like who will take us to a next level. But so I would highly recommend to listen to the podcast and directly the wisdom from the author and Oprah together. So that is beautiful. So
yeah,
it will
and
help you
she's
understand a lot of things.
Yeah, and
better.
he talked about being mindful. What does mindful mean? Because you just go and listen as to what kind of questions Oprah put in place, and he said that is not what mindful means. Yeah, how should you feel that the feelings in your hand and all? Beautifully explained as to what he means about, when he's talking about mindfulness and um the acceptance and all that stuff. I really loved it. So just want to share that. Thank you.
Yeah, that is the reason I am asking everyone. In fact, I found the podcast more easier to understand compared to the reading of the book. So,
Mansi,
so
can you
I would
please
highly recommend.
forward one
Yeah, yeah,
podcast in the group?
I have shared. I have shared
Okay.
chapter one
Okay.
already, but
Okay.
I'll do one thing. I'll reshare both. Like since we completed chapter two today, and what
Mhm.
we have decided, we will be sharing only one by one. Like after we finish reading of one chapter,
Mhm.
share about that particular. There is a 10-part series of the podcast, like 10 episodes dedicated to each chapter. And there,
Okay.
the structure is such that Oprah and Eckhart talk about the concepts mentioned in the chapter in depth, and then they also take some questions by the readers and uh, answer them, explain them, simplify things for them, and it's very very easy to understand. So I would highly recommend go through. I'll share both the episodes today again after this, so that all can go through over the weekend.
Thank you
So
so
yeah.
much.
Thank you everyone, and it was wonderful discussing and learning from each of one of you and understanding all of your perspectives. Thank you for highlighting the mindfulness, Shilpa, because yes, that's how we can actually understand our own ego and where it comes from, and so many things. So yeah, thank you for that. Thank you everyone for everything, and whatever you can offer to the group, feel free, and we are most welcome to see how we can accommodate more things. So thank you everyone. Have a great weekend.
You too.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye
Bye.
bye.
See you all on Monday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Happy
Bye.
weekend. Bye bye.
Happy weekend. Yeah.
Yeah, happy weekend. Yeah.